Hi guys, welcome to the first episode of the Just a Tip Live. I'm your host Sarah-Mikal, and today we're going to be talking about colorism. We're going to be talking about colorism, but more specifically, I'm going to be talking about colorism in Haiti and what it means to live and grow up in a society where colorism is pretty much overt, right? A lot of times when I talk to my Haitian friends and we talk about the Haitian society, we talk about the social gaps, the injustice, and obviously the topic of colorism comes up. And I think that's a little bit misleading because while they talk about the concept of racism, I think what they actually mean to allure is this concept of colorism. And these two are quite different. Now let's discuss, right? Colorism, on one hand, is a discriminatory attitude that someone has against another person based on color or skin tone. Now, racism, on the other hand, is a discriminatory attitude against people based on their actual or perceived racial status. Now, the problem and the relationship between colorism and racism have been, studied by academics for a long time. And the consensus essentially is that colorism is a product or a symptom of racism. Now, why are we talking about these petty things such as skin tones, and like skin color? Why do these things matter? Well, skin tone matters because we're a visual species and we respond to one another based on our physical presences, right? And when we talk about the present day Haitian society, skin color becomes a loaded signifier for identity, values, and wealth. And in order for us to understand, right, we need to go back in time. We need to look at history. Now, the history of colorism in Haiti dates from the 1700s in the midst of the French, British, and Spanish colonization. Western colonizers would rape, fall in love with black slaves, and their offsprings came to be known as this mixed race mulatto class. Now, in some cases, these white heads of households would care for these mixed offsprings. They would grant them freedoms, they would grant them privilege. Some of them would even send those kids away to Western European countries to study, while others would actually leave behind acres of land as well as real estate for their mixed offsprings. Now, it comes to no surprises that these mixed communities, although still considered lower than white people, white colonists, they were still perceived as being above their fellow white slaves. Now let's bring this back to the present day. There still exists this class of mulattoes that still have taken advantage of their ancestors' privileges. And it's for this reason that this class typically is composed of people with wealth, people with education. They possess political and industrial influences up until today. Also, from a social standpoint, they have Eurocentric features, which allows them to be predominantly perceived as beautiful, good-looking, making them desirable amongst Haitian society. Another way that mixed families typically build and keep the wealth is to marry amongst themselves. They also tend to relegate political power to their own kind. All of that is being done to preserve the status quo, to put them at the higher part of the hierarchy. Now, I do want to say that there does exist a healthy, growing, black educated middle class. However, it's important to note that regardless of those black people's wealth and education, the level of education that they achieve, right, there's still this racial undertone where they're considered lesser than their mixed race counterpart, which is a little bit messed up. I think it's quite messed up. Now, I want to talk a little bit about my personal experiences living and growing up in Haiti, where colorism was everywhere. Like I said, I grew up in Haiti in the 90s and I graduated from high school in 2010. I went to an all-girl private school, and that school in question, in terms of attendance, is pretty diverse, right? Now, it's important for you guys to know that when I talk about diversity in the context of this video, I'm talking about diversity of skin tone and not diversity of race, right? Because after all, right, Haiti is composed of about 90% of African descent and 10% 10% of these mixed races. Now in my school, colorism was pretty much prevalent, based on the attitude that you would see on the administrations, the teachers, but also based on the behavior that you would see with students within themselves, right? Now you have the mainstream idea where the fair-skinned girls were generally the most popular kids, they're generally associated with wealth, and they weren't necessarily the most inclusive people. On the other side of that token, the darker skinned girls, including myself, were put in this social dilemma where we had to basically aspire to befriend, aspire to resemble those lighter skinned ones. Now, what I realized from an analytical standpoint about colorism is that just like racism, colorism has, a system that enables it, right? And with all systems, we have active participant on every side. On one hand, you have the lighter skinned folks who instigate and do benefit from those colorist system. But darker skinned people also participate into these social norms through anti-blackness tendencies. I want to talk about the way that us as a Haitian society, we can unlearn these tendencies, these anti-black tendencies, because ultimately they're productive to any of us, right? I'm gonna first start talking about, what black, darker skinned people should do in order to unlearn anti-blackness. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is this idea of self-love. As a black person, it took me going to college in the US to actually unlearn these aspirations to whiteness, to light-skinnedness, right? I had to unlearn associating lighter skin with wealth, popularity, and beauty. I had to unlearn accepting that I was naturally lesser than, right? Naturally less cool, naturally less popular, naturally less pretty, right? All of that good stuff. I also had to unlearn being bothered by my type of hair, for instance. And the easiest way that I can suggest that you guys can start is by consuming more black media, right? It can be either by listening to Beyonce, it can be by watching other black YouTubers such as myself, it can be attending black parties. You have to put yourself in a community that it accepts blackness for what it is. Now, the second thing that I want black darker skinned people to understand is to stop any manifestation of internalized anti-blackness. Now, anti-blackness manifests itself in very implicit ways, which is why I think it's even more dangerous for us darker skinned folks. We ought to constantly be self-aware of the way we think, but most importantly, why we think these specific things. Let me give you a couple of, examples. Why do I find, let's say, Lupita Nyong'o unattractive? Why do I want to date light-skinned guys? Why don't I want to date darker-skinned folks? Why do I catch myself laughing at, jokes that are made at darker-skinned people's expenses? Another example of anti-blackness that I love is when black guys consistently fall in love with these lighter-skinned girls, and they refuse to date dark-skinned girls, saying that it's their preferences. I'm gonna say something very crazy, you can't have a preference based on someone's race. That is fucked up. That's not something that you should be doing, and if you do, that is anti-blackness. You can love someone for their personality, you can love someone for, their education maybe, but for you to have a preference based on race, that's fucked up. Again, these are all examples of questions that you have to really dig deep and have honest conversations with yourself to understand the degree of your internalized anti-blackness. By the way, we all have internalized anti-blackness that we all have to unlearn. I myself have to do it to do a better job at it, but so do you. The first thing is to actually being aware of these things. On the other side too, I think mixed people in Haiti should stop doing a couple of things because they also perpetrate, this colorist system, right? And they do it by, I think, I've summed up with 3 things that they do. The first thing is the denial of privilege, right? In many cases, in many conversations that I have with my Haitian friends, I get many times as a defense that they'll, flat out deny their privilege, right? They'll deny that they get hit on at bars, being the teacher's pet, being pretty, is partially rooted in the fact that they are fairer skinned, right? A friend of mine once actually tried me, and she tried to deflect and say, but Sarah, we're all Haitian, or my grandmother, it was your skin tone. I can't be colorist, like we're all one people, right? And I'm sure like no one is trying to deny your nationality, but these conversations cannot end there, right? Denying privilege in Haiti is going to refrain us from having meaningful discussion, and it's really not gonna move the ball forward, is it? Now, another thing that my fellow light-skinned people do is they have to end this persecution complex. And that's a term that I'm coining, persecution complex. And hear me out, right? Again, this is something that constantly comes back in conversations, for better or worse, with my light-skinned friends, right? In most of these conversations, my light-skinned friends, I get the sentiment that, they were taught at a very young age that people who call them racist, people who call them out on their BS, is basically, those people are basically mad or jealous. Everyone is just mad and jealous because they're pretty, they're constantly, they're wealthy, they're perceived as the people with money, and they're the one with the active targets. And, I understand the realities of Haiti, right? I understand that you might get targeted by criminals because historically, people with, with a lighter skin typically have wealth. So I can understand that reality, right? But I really want to challenge this idea that us black people are jealous and they're out to get you, right? We're out to get your booty. When darker skinned folks call you out on something, it's not on something that you did that's fucked up. It's not because, we're jealous of you. We want to encourage you, to go back and self-assess and introspect to see what exactly that you did as a lighter skinned person that might have triggered a response from someone else, from a darker skinned person. All in all, I hope that this video didn't really create a divide between dark versus, mixed people, because I'm not trying to specifically call out anyone in particular, right? My purpose in this video is to look beyond the tip of this iceberg that is colorism and scrub the surface to inside discussion. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you to my fiance for actually being behind the camera. And let me know what you guys think. Let's continue this conversation forward. Do you guys think that colorism is an issue in Haiti? What are the degree of colorism in Haiti? My lighter skinned people, what do you guys think about this conversation that we have? I hope I didn't portray you guys in a bad way. I did want to only look at systemic issues. I'm not pointing out anyone in particular. And I hope you guys do better. I hope we all do better. That's the whole thing, right? Do better.